Welcome to Operation Healing Heroes. Join us in the boat today as we feature U.S. Army veteran Danny Barrett on Fox Chain of Lakes in beautiful northern Illinois.
They served for us. They sacrificed for us. Their stories deserve to be told. Every military veteran has a story to tell. Join our host, Jay Garstecki, as we honor the stories of our true American heroes, one soldier at a time. The mission today is Operation Healing Heroes. Brought to you by Great Clips. The Fox Chain of Lakes is commonly known as the Key West of the Midwest. Tranquil waters and the summer sun would make any day on the lake an experience for the ages. It's here we made up with retired U.S. Army veteran Danny Barrett.
Great, how are you?
Good, man. Ready to go catch some fish?
Absolutely.
Come on board, let's do this. There you go.
Growing up in small town USA, Danny is no stranger to the outdoors.
We'll catch some fish.
Horseback riding, hunting, and fishing was commonplace for Danny growing up. But when it came time to graduate high school, and like many young men looking for direction, Danny turned to the armed forces.
At that point in my life, the military was not going to be a career. I wanted the college money.
What did your parents have to say about that?
My dad wasn't real hot on the idea initially. I grew up in a very patriotic family. My dad was a blue-collar worker. He loves this country. But I had the impression that not his son. You know what I mean?
Right, sure.
We got to go fight wars and do things, but not his kid.
Son, yeah.
We did not argue. There was no fighting or anything. We just had a mature conversation about it. But I remember telling my dad in 1999, Dad, it's not like there's a war happening anytime soon. And little did I know that those words would come to haunt me just 2 years later when 9/11 would happen.
In what seemed like the blink of an eye, Danny would find himself at his first duty station in Germany.
And I remember that night, it was after dark, it was late, 10 or 11 at night. Our battalion commander called everybody to the motor pool, and it was not even a formation. It just, everybody gathered around like a giant huddle. He says, I don't know where, and I don't know when, but pack your bags because we're leaving real soon.
Operation Iraqi Freedom was launched in 2003 to rid Iraq of its weapons of mass destruction and to eliminate Saddam Hussein's regime. Danny would serve his 4 years, seemingly safe from combat. But after additional training, Danny refused to abandon his new brothers and ultimately re-enlisted again. With the war still raging, Danny was redeployed to Iraq. It was March 13th, 2007, when Danny and his company convoyed into Baqubah.
The city exploded.
Really?
The entire city attacked all of our elements. We're getting calls over the radio that Alpha company's pinned down and Bravo company's pinned down. A company's 160 guys. How do you pin down 160 guys? Bravo company's calling us saying they've had a catastrophic kill on one of their strikers. A striker vehicle's been destroyed outside of a school. And they have fortified this school, and they're surrounded. The school was the nearest building they could get into, and there were children present in the school. It was a school day, and was essentially surrounded 360 degrees by bad guys. So the colonel's priority was to get to Bravo Company. Go running into a room, and there's several elementary-age kids that have been shot. And our medics are working on them, trying to save them. And I mean, there's kids screaming and gunfire and explosions, and Jay, it was deafening. Me and you were screaming at me, I can't hear you. I mean, that's how much gunfire and both inbound and outbound. How do we get out of here? We had fixed-wing aircraft supporting us that day, and so the colonel has me get on the radio and start calling these guys. The hopes with a show of force is that the bad guys are gonna hear the jets, and maybe it will pause the fighting, maybe it'll get them to stop shooting and look up at the jets. Maybe it'll get them to stop fighting because now they know there's jets up there and they know maybe what's coming. Over the gunfire and everything, I barely heard them. I don't know if I heard them or not. If I did, I barely heard them. But I remember over there, they call show of force complete. And so I hit the colonel, and sir, that was it. And as you can tell, in the heat of the moment, I don't think so. You know, they got to get down here. I'll never forget it. He says, Roger, show of force approved. We're inbound at 80 feet. I thought I misheard him. Please confirm. He says 80 feet. And I said 80 feet. Roger, here we come. And I turned and looked at the colonel and I said, duck.
Operation Healing Heroes is brought to you by Great Clips, Winnebago, and by Recon Boats.
Operation Healing Heroes is a nonprofit organization dedicated to documenting the lives of our U.S. military veterans. In addition, we also provide financial support and treatment for post-traumatic stress. Your donation will help heal our heroes.
Surrounded by enemy fire and nowhere to go, Danny once again called in air support for a show of force.
You know, I remember sitting in that room, the angle that I was at, there was a window I could see kind of down the road that they were going to come down, and it was a dirt road. And these two dots drop out of the sky, and it was like something out of a movie. When they planed out at 80 feet, the sand and the dust in the air, it swirled like you see in the movies. And they came screaming by, and it shattered windows, and it shook everything, and it was successful. There was a lull in the gunfight. We got a squad out to get a foothold in a building across the street, and then had to fight out of the city. I mean, they wouldn't even let us leave, you know, and so we had to fight out of the city. And that first day, Chevalier got killed, and we had 14 guys wounded. And that set the tone for the Battle of Baqubah. For 6 months, the combat never stopped.
Having been declared the capital of the Islamic State of Iraq, Baqubah housed what was believed to be nearly 3,000 Al-Qaeda fighters. Danny and his company still had to show their presence within the city, and May 5th started just like any other day.
Driving into the city, it was I guess you'd call it like a divided highway, 2 lanes on each side. And there was one section that we had experienced a lot of roadside bombs on the right side of the road. The lead truck, the sergeant major's driver, just kept straight in the right lane. I remember when we passed where we normally cross, the rear truck called to the front and said, hey, you guys didn't cross over. You know, why not? And the sergeant major calls back and he says, oh, he's living dangerously today. There's more IEDs on this side of the road anyway. And we all started laughing. You know, again, sick sense of humor. You got to try to laugh when you can in combat. I was still laughing when the bomb went off.
IED.
So I'm standing in the right rear of the truck, out the roof, exposed from about the waist up, facing the side of the road. And the bomb was in the curb of the sidewalk. I barely heard it. It was a very muffled, like, boom. The next thing I know, I'm hearing somebody calling my name. You know, Danny, and it's echoing, like somebody's yelling down a hallway. And I finally opened my eyes, and Jeff Anello, our medic, one of my good friends, he's on top of me. He rode on our truck, and he's shaking me, you know, Danny. And I remember as I was trying to sit up and get up, Jeff kind of grabbed me by my harness, and he kind of spun me around and set me down. We had a bench inside the truck, and he set me down. And he's yelling, because everything's loud, and he says, you sit and you stay. And he went up in my hatch on top of the truck, and he goes, here's your helmet. And he hands me my Kevlar helmet. And I remember grabbing the helmet and looking at it, and I just kind of, I went like that. I didn't realize my helmet wasn't on my head, and I looked at him, and he's looking at me, and he goes, are you okay? And I think so. I got back to my tent, and shortly thereafter, my best friend, Jason Vaughn, showed up, and he had this plate from the chow hall that was piled with, I think, everything that they were offering. And he brought it and, you know, hugged me like he's never hugged me before, and says, man, don't scare me like that. You know, I heard over the radio, and I said, yeah, you know, I remember saying, you scare me. You know, like, I'm just so happy to be alive.
Operation Healing Heroes is brought to you by Great Clips, Lake of the Woods Tourism, and by Recon Boats.
put me in that net.
That's pretty good, right?
Yeah, it is. Fun fight, too.
Yeah, it was fun. If you'd like to see more behind-the-scenes footage, follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, make sure you check out our podcast, Operation Healing Heroes, where we're going to tell more veteran stories. If you're a U.S. military veteran in Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, or beautiful sunny Florida, log on to our website, takeavetfishing.org, to find an event near you.
We're not very good at this.
That was a bluegill.
That's okay, though. I have a rod in my hand, so I'm smiling.
Yeah, right?
This is my happy place. Oh, there's one.
Got one?
Yep.
Nice. Hang on. How is it? Good?
Good. Feels like a good fish. It's coming up under the boat.
Oh, it's a nice walleye. Nice walleye.
Yes. Beautiful.
Nice. Nice fish.
Awesome.
There you go. Nice fish.
Awesome.
It's a good fish.
Beautiful walleye. I was supposed to be out for 10 days because of what would later be diagnosed as me suffering a traumatic brain injury, TBI. My best friend, Jason Vaughn, the one that had brought me the Chow Hall plate the day before, that night he came over and we were talking, and he brought me a note. It was folded up in a tiny little square, and he handed it to me. He says, "Here, hang on to this," very nonchalantly. "Here, hang on to this." And I said, "What's that?" And I opened it up, and it was a death note. And he was from Iuka, Mississippi, a good old Southern boy, loved him, my best friend. And he started the note, "In case I buy the farm, here's the password." Back then it was MySpace, before Facebook. "Here's the password to my MySpace, here's the password to my computer." He had a couple little personal notes in there. So I folded this piece of paper up and I threw it at him. And it bounced off his chest and fell on the floor. And I said, "Shut up, nothing's gonna happen to you. Like, we're gonna be okay. It's not gonna happen to us." And he didn't say a word. He just knelt down, he picked up that piece of paper and he handed it to me. And he says, just hold on to this. And I turned around and walked in my tent, and I didn't realize that would be the last time I'd ever see him or talk to him. I went to bed, and the next morning, and there was a lot of bad reporting that morning. But I remember I went over to where I could see those TVs, and I looked up at the wall. And the first thing that I read on the TV, it says A66V, which is Alpha Company. 66V is the vehicle, but 66 is the company commander's truck. Those guys were my friends. I knew all of them. But it says A66V, struck by deep buried IED, vehicle on roof, vehicle on fire, soldiers burning alive. And my heart just dropped into my stomach. Like I said, I rode on that truck. Those were my friends, especially Jason. He was the driver. He's my best friend in the whole world. But I started shoulder tapping these radio guys. "How's the driver? How's the driver?" Well, they got blown up and they got ambushed, and there was just, again, chaos on the radios. This went on for a couple of hours, that I'm in this angst and this talk, trying to figure out what's going on with my best friend. I come walking back in the operations center, and one of the guys that was in there knew I was asking about the driver. He didn't know that me and Jason were best friends, so I don't hold any ill will towards him at all. But as I entered the operations center, he's walking by and he stops, and then he says, "Hey, you were asking about the driver of that truck." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, he's dead," and turned and walked away. That tidal wave of emotion.
Yeah.
I can't even explain it. I got dizzy, like I was gonna pass out, seeing spots. And I remember I dropped that charger, and I think I had like a notebook in this hand, and I remember I threw the notebook, and I don't think I meant to, but a scream came out of me. And I turned to leave the operations center, I hit that door, and my legs gave out, and I just fell in the dirt, and I'm just hysterically crying. Jason was the greatest human being I've ever known. Jason loved everybody, and everybody loved Jason. You hear about people that, wow, everybody they met was their friend. Everybody Jason met was family. I mean, that's just how he treated people. Over the next few days, I kind of made my peace. I don't know, it's hard to describe, but my mindset, I kind of was like, I'm gonna die here, and I'm okay with that. You know, like it was a weird feeling. It was a weird mindset to be in, but I felt like home was this phantasmal, faraway place that I was never going to see again because death was all around me. Death just took my best friend, and I'm next.
The Castleman Disease Collaborative Network is dedicated to accelerating research and treatment for Castleman disease, a disease at the intersection of cancer and autoimmunity.
If you'd like to personally thank a veteran that you've seen in one of our episodes or nominate a veteran to be featured in a future episode, log on to our website, operationhealingheroes.org.
Operation Healing Heroes is brought to you by Recon Boats, Humminbird Minn Kota, and by Power Pole.
There you go.
Nice. There you go, little guy. Part of the other problem is that we carry all that stuff with us. All the loss, all the horror, all the
Trauma, everything.
And we've shoved it way down deep inside so that we can continue to be a soldier. And you get home and
It all starts
it festers. It's almost undescribable. It's weird. Your mindset changes, your perception on the world changes. Life sucked. You know, I felt very broken, very damaged. Like, man, war has really screwed me up, and there's no recovering from this. This is it. My son was scared of me. You know, he was 2, and I'm his dad, and I was angry. I was yelling and screaming, and when your toddler child is scared of you, why am I even here? I'm doing more damage to him by being here. He'd be better off without me. And there was a point that I tried to kill myself, thinking that was best for him. I thank God every day that I was too stupid to do it the right way. You know, I couldn't do it. You know, I tried, failed. Looking back on it all these years later, like I didn't want help. I was kind of happy wallowing in my own pity. You know, I remember getting up in the morning and getting out of my bedroom and walking down the hall and looking for something to get mad at so that I could detonate on everybody, be mad at the world, and I could go back to my room and feel sorry for myself. It was just the mindset I was in. I didn't really realize it at the time, but looking back, I can see it. I finally got on a counselor that had some techniques that he was able to kind of connect with me, and I was able to kind of connect with him. He was actually a Purple Heart recipient from Vietnam. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't overnight. But I think the biggest thing he did for me was helping me understand what was wrong with me. You know, I've got a very supportive wife, you know, that she is 100% in my corner. And a lot of times when I'm having a bad day, she sees it before I do. You know, and she doesn't poke the bear, but she'll say something.
It's good to know that you have a support system around you that helps you, you know what I mean? And please don't be afraid to ask for help, because there's organizations like ours out there that not only have resources that we can provide, but also we pay for the treatment. And so if we can make tomorrow better than today for you, I mean, that's what we're all about. Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to give you a little something to commemorate our time together and you sharing your story with us. We certainly appreciate all the sacrifices that you've made in your life, and on behalf of Operation Healing Heroes and our family, I'd like to give you this custom rod that was made. It's a St. Croix rod, custom built by Thorn Brothers, and it says custom built for Danny Barrett in appreciation of your sacrifices and service.
Oh, that's
it's got all the branches of service and our logo on there. And in addition, I'd like to give you this jersey with your name on there, Danny Barrett, and Barrett on the back, and say thank you for your service.
Oh, man.
Brother, I sure do appreciate you, and I know that everybody does, man. We do appreciate your sacrifice. Doesn't go unnoticed.
Thank you guys for doing this, for everybody you've done it for, and everybody you're gonna do it for. This is awesome.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. Like I said, I think as Americans, we have a civil duty to make sure that we honor every single servicemen. I don't care if you serve during peacetime.
Yeah.
We have a duty to honor every single one of our veterans because
Absolutely.
they provide this. They
Even in
provide this
peacetime, they're
freedom.
doing a job. You don't have to go to combat to be, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Thank
so
you.
thank you again, brother. Appreciate
Thank you
it,
for
man.
having me,
Thank you.
Jay.
Thanks so much, man. We appreciate you. If you'd like to personally thank a veteran that you've seen in one of our episodes, or nominate a veteran to be featured in a future episode, log on to our website, operationhealingheroes.org, and click on the nominate button.